I transferred schools because I wanted silence. That was it. No dramatic backstory. No tragic family secret. No revenge arc. I was just tired. Tired of people staring at me. Tired of classrooms that felt too loud. Tired of feeling like every conversation was secretly judging me. So when my mom told me we were moving, I thought maybe this was finally my chance to disappear properly. A new school. A new city. Clean reset. I promised myself one thing that morning. Don't stand out. That was the entire plan. And somehow, I ruined it in less than 5 minutes. Rain hammered against the train windows while I sat quietly near the back corner, gripping the strap of my school bag hard enough to hurt my fingers. My new academy uniform already felt uncomfortable. The red blazer with elegant gold lining looked way too expensive for someone like me. The black tie around my neck felt like it was choking me. Even the polished black shoes made me nervous every time they clicked against the floor. I stared at my reflection in the glass. Messy black hair. Tired gray eyes. The expression of someone already regretting existing. I looked exactly like the kind of guy people forgot immediately after meeting. Good. That was safer. The moment I arrived at the school gates, my stomach twisted. The academy looked unreal. Huge white buildings. Perfect gardens. Students laughing beneath shared umbrellas like some kind of romance movie opening scene. Meanwhile, I stood there alone in the rain like a lost side character. Great! I muttered under my breath. I already look suspicious. A group of girls walked past me near the entrance. One of them glanced at me briefly, then whispered something. They laughed softly. My soul almost left my body instantly. I lowered my head and walked faster. Don't look at anyone. Don't talk. Don't embarrass yourself. Easy. At least, that's what I thought. Until I entered Class 2A. The classroom instantly became quiet. Every single person turned toward me. The teacher smiled proudly beside the board. This is our new transfer student. No. Please don't make me introduce myself. Go ahead, the teacher said warmly. My throat closed immediately. 30 pairs of eyes stared directly at me. I could literally hear my heartbeat. Amazing start. I'm Kaito. My voice cracked. I wanted to die instantly. A few students smiled awkwardly. Someone near the back laughed quietly. A boy whispered something to his friend while looking at me. I could already feel sweat forming beneath my collar. I hope we all get along, I finished weakly. The silence afterward somehow felt worse. Then the teacher pointed toward an empty desk near the window. Perfect timing. You'll sit beside Yuk Ina Sautom. The room reacted immediately. Whispers exploded everywhere. Seriously? No way. He's dead. Poor guy. My brain stopped processing. Confused, I slowly turned toward the girl beside the window, and instantly understood everything. She was beautiful enough to make the entire room feel dim. Long jet-black hair flowed neatly over her shoulders with soft shine from the cloudy daylight outside. Sharp silver-blue eyes stared at me calmly. Her posture looked perfect. Elegant. Untouchable. The kind of girl who probably rejected confessions before breakfast. But what scared me most was her expression. Nothing. No emotion at all. She looked at me like she was observing weather. The boys in class watched her constantly without trying to make it obvious. The girls copied her hairstyle. Even the teacher sounded more polite while talking to her. I immediately understood. Top girl in school. And now I had to sit beside her. My life was over. I walked toward the desk carefully while trying not to trip over my own feet. Then somehow, my bag strap caught the corner of a chair. My balance disappeared instantly. Oh! The classroom gasped. I stumbled forward directly toward her desk. And that's when everything went wrong. Her hand grabbed my arm instinctively. But because of the momentum, I fell directly onto her. My face hit something soft. Warm. The classroom froze. My eyes widened slowly. Her lips were against mine. My brain shut down completely. For one horrifying second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Rain tapped softly against the windows while my entire soul ascended from embarrassment. Then someone screamed. He just kissed Sayatome. The classroom exploded instantly. What? No way. Bro is insane. Someone record this. Phones appeared immediately. My face turned violently red as I scrambled backward so fast I nearly hit another desk. I am sorry. Couldn't breathe. Lipstick stained the corner of my mouth. Oh my God. Oh my God. I touched my lips in horror. The entire classroom stared at me like I had committed a crime. But somehow, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was Yuck-Ina Sayatome herself. Because she wasn't angry. She just sat there silently staring at me. Silver blue eyes unmoving. Unreadable. And somehow, that terrified me more. I didn't mean. I tripped. I swear it was an accident. Nobody listened. The boys looked ready to kill me. The girls were whispering aggressively. Someone near the window was literally replaying the recording already. My peaceful school life had ended before first period. Then suddenly, Yuck-Ina lifted one hand slowly. The entire room became silent immediately. Even I stopped breathing. She looked at me for another long second. Then quietly said, "You taste like strawberry candy." My brain exploded. The classroom erupted. What does that mean? Why would she say that? His life is an actual rom-com. Meanwhile, I sat there frozen in complete psychological destruction. Because she was right. I did eat strawberry candy on the train earlier. How did she notice that? And why did her voice sound almost interested? That was the exact moment I realized something horrifying. The most untouchable girl in school was staring at me like I had personally ruined her life. And somehow, I had a terrifying feeling this was only the beginning. My mom said if I don't hit 1,000 subscribers soon, she's gonna force me to go outside and develop social skills instead of watching romance anime all day. So please subscribe, like, and comment your favorite part before I'm forced to touch grass against my will. I spent the rest of the morning trying not to exist. Unfortunately, that became impossible after accidentally kissing the most untouchable girl in school. Everywhere I looked, people were whispering. Every single second. Even during class, I could feel eyes drilling into the back of my head. The worst part? Nobody was even pretending to hide it anymore. That's him. The transfer student. The guy who kissed Sayatome. Some people sounded impressed. Others sounded deeply offended by my existence. Meanwhile, I sat there staring at my notebook without writing a single word because my hands still wouldn't stop shaking. I kept replaying the moment in my head. The fall. Her lips. The silence afterward. Then her voice. "You taste like strawberry candy." Why would she say that? Who says that after an accidental kiss? I squeezed my pencil harder. Maybe she hated me. Maybe she planned to destroy my life slowly in public. Honestly, that felt more believable. A tiny sound suddenly pulled me from my thoughts. Tap. I froze. Another tap. Slowly, I turned my head. Yuck-Ina Sayatome was staring at me again. Her silver blue eyes looked calm as always. Cold. Elegant. But her fingers were lightly tapping my desk. Like she wanted my attention. My heartbeat immediately sped up. Why yes. She glanced at my notebook. "You haven't written anything for 20 minutes. I nearly choked. Oh. Amazing response, Kaito. Her gaze lingered on me for another second. Then she leaned slightly closer. Close enough for me to smell her perfume. Something soft. Clean. Dangerously calming. "You're nervous," she said quietly. The way she said it made my chest tighten. Not teasing. Not judgmental. Just observant. That somehow made it worse. "I am not nervous," I lied instantly. She looked at me silently. Then glanced at the pencil in my hand. It snapped. Right in my grip. The classroom went quiet for exactly half a second before someone started laughing near the back. My soul left my body again. Yuck-Ina blinked once slowly. Then, for the first time all day, I saw the tiniest smile tug at the corner of her lips. And somehow that was more dangerous than if she'd insulted me. Because suddenly she looked human. Not perfect. Not untouchable. Just pretty. Painfully pretty. I looked away immediately. Bad idea. Very bad idea. because now my heart wouldn't calm down anymore. The rest of the lesson became torture. Every tiny movement beside me distracted me completely. The sound of her turning pages, the way sunlight touched her hair near the window, the quiet tapping of her fingers against her desk. And every time I accidentally glanced at her, she was already looking at me first. Why? That question kept destroying me internally. Lunch break eventually arrived. Freedom. Finally. I grabbed my bag immediately, planning to escape somewhere isolated before more people started asking questions. But the moment I stood, a voice stopped me. "Where are you going?" I froze instantly. Slowly, I turned around. Yukaina was still sitting calmly beside the window, watching me. I was just gonna eat somewhere else. Why? Because your existence short-circuits my nervous system. I like quiet places. For a second, she said nothing. Then she stood up. The entire classroom noticed immediately. Whispers exploded again. The boys nearby looked terrified. And then, she walked directly toward me. My survival instincts activated instantly. Every step she took somehow made the room feel smaller. She stopped right in front of me. Close. Way too close. "You can eat with me." The classroom completely lost its mind. What? No way. Sayatome invited him? Meanwhile, I genuinely considered fainting. "And no, it's okay," I said quickly. "You really don't have to." "I know." "Then why?" She tilted her head slightly, and somehow, that tiny movement nearly killed me emotionally. "Because I want to." My brain stopped functioning. The room behind us blurred completely. Nobody had ever said something like that to me before. Especially not a girl like her. Especially not while looking directly into my eyes like that. I looked away first. Coward. The rooftop was quieter than I expected. Soft wind moved through the fence while distant student conversations echoed below us from the courtyard. I sat across from Yukaina awkwardly while trying not to choke on my own breathing. This felt unreal. The most popular girl in school was eating lunch with me. Voluntarily. Meanwhile, I still struggled ordering food at restaurants without rehearsing first. "This is bad," I muttered internally. "What is?" I almost launched my drink across the roof. "And nothing." She stared at me for another second, then quietly opened her lunchbox. It looked expensive, carefully prepared, perfectly arranged. Of course it did. Everything about her looked perfect. Meanwhile, my lunch consisted of convenience store bread and embarrassment. Her eyes slowly shifted toward my food, then back to me. "You eat like you live alone." That sentence hit way too hard. I laughed awkwardly. "My mom works a lot." "I see." The wind blew softly between us. For some reason, the silence didn't feel uncomfortable anymore. That scared me a little. I'd spent years avoiding people because conversations exhausted me. But with her, the quiet felt strangely warm. Until suddenly, the rooftop door slammed open. 3 girls entered loudly while talking, then immediately froze after spotting us. More specifically, spotting Yukaina beside me. One girl nearly dropped her drink. Another narrowed her eyes suspiciously. And the third girl looked directly at me like I was a criminal. "Oh!" One of them forced a smile. "We didn't know the rooftop was occupied." Yukaina calmly continued eating. "It's a public rooftop." The girls laughed awkwardly, but their eyes stayed on me, sharp, judging. One of them finally spoke. "So you're the transfer student?" I nodded nervously. Then another girl suddenly smirked. "You're kinda bold, huh?" My stomach twisted immediately. It was an accident." "Sure." The way she said it burned. I lowered my eyes instantly. There it was. Reality. Of course girls like them thought I was creepy. Of course they assumed the worst. That familiar heavy feeling started pressing against my chest again. The same feeling that made me hate school before. Then suddenly, a soft sound interrupted everything. Click. Yukaina calmly closed her lunchbox. The rooftop became quiet. She slowly looked toward the girls. And for the first time since meeting her, her expression turned cold enough to hurt. "He apologized already?" she said quietly. Nobody answered. Her silver blue eyes narrowed slightly. So why are you still trying to embarrass him? Silence. The girls looked stunned. Honestly, so was I. Because she defended me. Publicly. Without hesitation. One of the girls forced another laugh. We were just joking. I wasn't. The atmosphere instantly became unbearable. After another awkward second, the girls quickly left the rooftop. The door slammed shut behind them, and suddenly it was quiet again. I stared at Yukaina completely speechless. Why did you do that? She looked genuinely confused. They were making you uncomfortable. Yeah, but nobody had ever stepped in for me before. Not like that. Not immediately. Not without gaining something from it. My chest tightened strangely. Yukaina looked at me quietly for a long moment. Then she asked something that completely destroyed my emotional stability. Do people usually not protect you? I couldn't answer, because honestly, the silence probably told her everything already. After that rooftop conversation, something changed. Not around the school. That part got worse. Way worse. The rumors spread through the academy faster than an actual disease. By the second day, people weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Every hallway conversation somehow stopped when I walked past. Groups of girls whispered while looking at me over their phones. The boys in my class stared at me like I'd committed an unforgivable crime against humanity. Apparently, accidentally kissing the school's untouchable queen was enough to destroy the balance of society. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was Yukaina, because after defending me on the rooftop, she stopped pretending I didn't exist. And honestly, that terrified me more than the rumors. It started with little things. Tiny things. Things nobody else would notice. But I noticed, because every single one made my heart malfunction. Like how she started turning toward me whenever I spoke in class. Or how she quietly waited beside the classroom door after lessons without explaining why. Or how she somehow always ended up near me during breaks. At first I convinced myself it was coincidence. Then she started asking questions. Weird questions. What kind of music do you listen to? Why do you always buy strawberry candy? Why do you avoid eye contact when you're embarrassed? How come you apologize before people even get angry? That last one almost hurt, because she asked it so casually. Like she genuinely wanted to understand me. Not mock me. Understand me. Nobody had ever looked at me that carefully before. And honestly, I didn't know how to survive it. One afternoon during literature class, I accidentally glanced toward the window while trying to calm myself down. Rain tapped softly against the glass again. Gray skies, quiet classroom, warm, sleepy atmosphere. Then I noticed something. Yukaina was staring at me. Not casually. Not absent-mindedly. She was fully staring. Her chin rested lightly against her hand while her silver blue eyes followed me carefully. The moment our eyes met, she didn't look away. My heartbeat instantly stumbled. I panicked first. Obviously. I looked down so quickly I nearly dropped my pen. Bad move. Because now I could feel heat spreading across my face. And somehow, that made it worse. A tiny sound reached my ears. Soft. Almost invisible. I looked up again carefully. Yukaina was smiling. Not fully. Just enough to completely ruin my emotional stability. That tiny smile stayed in my head for the rest of the day. Even while walking home. Even while trying to sleep. Especially while trying to sleep. This is bad. I whispered into my pillow that night, because somewhere deep down, I was starting to look forward to seeing her. And that was dangerous. People like her didn't notice guys like me for real. That only happened in anime. Real life was crueler, right? The next morning started normally, which honestly should have warned me something horrible was coming. I arrived early to avoid attention, kept my head down, survived first period somehow. Then lunch break happened, and my life immediately got worse again. Kaito! I froze mid-step. A loud, cheerful voice echoed through the hallway. Not Yukaina. This voice sounded bright, energetic, dangerous in a completely different way. I slowly turned around, and nearly got blinded by confidence. A girl with long honey-brown hair waved excitedly while jogging toward me through the crowded hallway. Her skirt was slightly shorter than regulation. Her smile looked completely fearless. Golden accessories decorated her bag. And unlike everyone else in this school, she moved like she genuinely didn't care what people thought. A Gyaru. An actual Gyaru. Why was she approaching me? Several students nearby immediately started whispering. Oh no! Not her too. Transfer students finished. I wanted to disappear into the floor instantly. The girl stopped directly in front of me. Way too close. Then grinned. So you're the famous kissing transfer student. I almost died on impact. I am not famous. You kinda are. She laughed brightly, and somehow, instead of sounding mean, sounded warm. That confused me immediately. Most people laughed at me. Not with me. I'm Hina, she said casually. You looked lonely, so I decided to adopt you. My brain short-circuited. Adopt? Yep. Before I could respond, she suddenly hooked one arm around mine. The hallway exploded instantly. Wait, what? Hina just touched him? This guy is actually insane. Meanwhile, my soul left my body for the 17th time this week. Hina-san. You're very close. That's usually how walking works. I couldn't even argue because my nervous system had already collapsed completely. She smelled sweet, like vanilla and perfume, and the warmth of her arm against mine made my thoughts completely disorganized. This was too much human interaction for one lifetime. Then suddenly, the atmosphere changed. Sharp, cold, heavy. The hallway noise lowered strangely. Hina noticed it first. Oh! Slowly, she turned her head, and my stomach immediately dropped. Yukaina stood at the end of the hallway, watching us, expressionless, but somehow, far scarier than usual. Students nearby quietly moved out of her way instinctively. Even the air felt colder around her. Her silver blue eyes slowly lowered toward Hina's arm wrapped around mine, then toward me, and for some reason, I felt guilty instantly, even though I technically did nothing wrong. Hina grinned mischievously beside me. Well, this got interesting. Please don't say things like that out loud. Yukaina walked toward us calmly, each step somehow increasing the pressure in my chest. When she finally stopped in front of us, her gaze rested on me first. Not Hina. Me. You left class quickly, she said quietly. Why did that sound like an accusation? I was just getting lunch. I see. Silence. Then her eyes slowly shifted toward Hina again, still holding my arm. Hina smiled innocently. We're friends now. The hallway collectively stopped breathing, because the temperature somehow dropped another 10 degrees. Yukina's expression remained calm, but I noticed something tiny. Her fingers tightened slightly around the books in her hand, and suddenly, I realized something horrifying. She was jealous. The untouchable queen of the academy was jealous because another girl touched me. That realization hit so hard I forgot how to function for a second. Hina noticed too, which made everything infinitely worse. Oh! Hina whispered dramatically beside me. She likes you. I absolutely do not. Yukaina replied instantly. Too instantly. Hina's grin widened. My lifespan shortened. I was talking about him liking you. My soul physically ascended. Meanwhile, Yukaina looked at me again. And for the first time since meeting her, I saw visible emotion crack through her calm mask. Not coldness. Not elegance. Embarrassment. Tiny. Fleeting. Real. Then suddenly, she stepped closer. Close enough for only me to hear her next words. You shouldn't let people touch you so easily. My heart nearly exploded, especially because her voice sounded quiet, possessive, and before I could respond, she gently fixed my crooked school tie, right there in the middle of the hallway, in front of everyone. Her fingers brushed lightly against my collar. Warm, careful. The entire school completely lost its mind around us. But honestly, I couldn't hear any of it anymore, because for one terrifying second, all I could focus on was how gentle she was touching me. After Yukaina fixed my tie in front of the entire hallway, my school life officially stopped belonging to me. By the next morning, everyone had already decided we were secretly dating. Not maybe close. Not possibly friends. Dating. Apparently the school had skipped every stage of human interaction and gone directly to romance conspiracy theories. I heard it everywhere. They looked so intimate. She touched his tie. Hina was flirting too. Is he secretly some kind of playboy? That last one almost made me walk into traffic. Me? A playboy? I struggled making eye contact with cashiers. But none of it mattered anymore. Because once rumors start spreading in high school, they stop feeling like words. They become reality. Even teachers started looking at me differently. One older instructor smiled at me during attendance like I'd unlocked some hidden achievement. Meanwhile, the boys in class looked ready to assassinate me between periods. I tried ignoring it. Really, I told myself none of it mattered. But eventually, the constant attention started crawling beneath my skin. It followed me everywhere. In the hallways, in the cafeteria, even after school. Especially after school. Because now people recorded me. Actually recorded me. One afternoon while changing shoes near the lockers, I noticed two girls pretending to talk nearby while secretly pointing their phone camera at me. The moment I looked over, they giggled. One whispered, "He's kinda cute when he gets nervous." Cute. That word hit me strangely. Not because it felt good. Because it felt impossible. People didn't call me cute growing up. They called me quiet, weird, awkward, forgettable. So hearing it now almost felt like they were talking about someone else entirely. I quickly looked away and left before my chest could start hurting again. The worst part was, Yukaina didn't help. Not intentionally, but somehow she kept making everything worse without realizing it. Because she stayed close to me. Always. Not aggressively. Not clingy. Just present. Like she naturally drifted toward me without thinking. If I sat near the window during lunch, she eventually appeared. If I stayed late after class, she quietly remained too. If someone embarrassed me publicly, her eyes immediately turned cold enough to kill the atmosphere. And every time she protected me, the rumors grew stronger. Part of me wanted her to stop. Another part, the selfish part, waited for those moments constantly. That scared me. A lot. Because I was getting used to her. Used to hearing her quiet voice beside me. Used to her staring at me during class. Used to the strange warmth that appeared whenever she sat nearby. And once you get used to warmth, loneliness feels colder than before. That realization followed me all week. Until Thursday afternoon finally broke me. Gym class. Actual hell. I already hated physical education normally. But doing it while half the school believed I was dating Yukaina Sotome? Psychological torture. I changed slowly in the locker room while trying to ignore the conversations around me. Still can't believe she likes him. What does she even see in that guy? Maybe she lost a bet. Laughter. Quiet. Sharp. My hands paused slightly while tying my shoes. There it was. That familiar feeling again. The heavy sinking pressure in my chest. Because deep down, part of me agreed with them. What did she see in me? I wasn't athletic. Wasn't confident. Could barely talk normally around people. Girls like Yukaina didn't genuinely like guys like me. That only happened in stories. Reality worked differently, right? The gym session started badly and somehow got worse. Basketball. Of course. The sport specifically designed to humiliate socially anxious people publicly. I stayed near the edge of the court hoping nobody would pass to me. Naturally, someone passed to me immediately. Panic exploded through my body. I fumbled the catch instantly. The ball bounced off my hands and rolled across the floor while several students laughed. Nice one, Romeo. More laughter. Heat rushed into my face immediately. I muttered a quick apology automatically even though nobody got hurt. Then, a voice cut through the noise sharply. That joke stopped being funny 3 days ago. Silence spread across the gym. I looked up. Yukaina stood near the opposite side of the court. Watching them. Watching me. One of the boys scoffed awkwardly. We're just joking. No, she said calmly. You're targeting him because you're insecure. The atmosphere instantly became dangerous. Nobody expected Yukaina Satom to call someone insecure publicly, especially not with that expression. Cold, beautiful, merciless. The boy looked embarrassed immediately, but somehow, that made everything worse for me, because now everyone was staring again. At me, the protected quiet kid. The pathetic guy Yukaina kept defending. My chest tightened painfully. I hated this. I hated the attention. Hated the whispers. Hated feeling weak all the time. And most of all, I hated how badly I wanted her to keep looking at me anyway. That contradiction exhausted me. After class ended, I escaped before anyone could stop me. I climbed the empty staircase toward the back building rooftop, breathing too fast. The sky looked gray again. Wind pushed softly against my blazer while I leaned both hands against the fence. Finally quiet. Finally alone. Or at least, I thought I was alone. You disappeared quickly. My eyes closed instantly. Of course she followed me. I turned slowly. Yukaina stood near the rooftop door holding her bag carefully against her side. Her long black hair moved softly in the wind. Silver blue eyes calm as always. But something about her expression looked gentler now. Worried. You shouldn't skip the last lesson, she said quietly. I just needed air. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable. Never uncomfortable with her anymore. That realization scared me again. Yukaina slowly walked closer until she stood beside me near the fence. The city stretched beneath the rooftop quietly. Cars moving below. Orange evening light breaking through clouds. Then suddenly, she spoke again. Are the rumors bothering you? I laughed weakly before I could stop myself. That obvious? You apologize more when you're upset. That hit harder than it should have. Because she noticed things. Tiny things. Things nobody else cared enough to notice. I looked down at my hands. People keep acting like I tricked you somehow. You didn't. I know, but... The words stuck painfully in my throat. Then finally, they're right. Yukaina turned toward me slightly. I forced myself to continue. Someone like you shouldn't even be near someone like me. The second I said it, I regretted it. Because for the first time since meeting her, Yukaina looked hurt. Actually hurt. A tiny crack in her perfect composure. And somehow seeing that expression made my chest ache immediately. Someone like me? She repeated softly. I just mean. I couldn't finish. Because honestly, I didn't know how to explain years of feeling unwanted in one sentence. The rooftop became quiet except for the wind. Then suddenly, Yukaina stepped closer. Very close. Close enough that my heartbeat immediately lost control again. Her eyes locked onto mine completely. And this time, she didn't let me look away. You keep deciding what I should feel for me, she whispered. My breathing stopped. That's unfair. The sunset light caught softly against her silver blue eyes. And for one terrifying second, I realized something dangerous. She genuinely cared. Not out of pity. Not because of rumors. She actually cared about me. That realization shook something loose inside my chest. Because if that was true, then maybe the scariest thing wasn't the rumors anymore. Maybe the scariest thing was how badly I wanted to believe her. After the rooftop conversation, I stopped sleeping properly. Not because of the rumors anymore. Because of her. Because every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing Yukaina's voice. You keep deciding what I should feel for me. That sentence stayed trapped inside my chest for days. And honestly, scared me. Because part of me wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. But wanting something doesn't make it safe. That was the problem. People like me learned early not to expect too much from happiness. The moment you trust it, it disappears. So even while Yukaina kept growing closer to me, part of my heart stayed braced for impact, waiting for reality to ruin everything. Unfortunately, reality didn't wait long. Friday afternoon arrived with heavy rain and dark clouds swallowing the sky. Most students rushed home immediately after classes ended. But I stayed behind in the library pretending to study while listening to rain hit the windows softly. Quiet places made thinking easier. Usually. Today it just made me overthink harder. I stared blankly at the same textbook page for nearly 10 minutes before realizing I hadn't absorbed a single word. Because my thoughts kept drifting toward her again. The way she looked at me lately felt different. Warmer. Closer. And every time our eyes met now, there was this strange pause between us. Like something unspoken kept growing bigger. Dangerously bigger. "You're doing it again." I nearly died. I looked up instantly. Yuck stood across the table holding 2 canned coffees. Rainwater still clung lightly to her dark hair near her shoulders. Beautiful. That word hit me so naturally now it genuinely terrified me. Doing what? Thinking too hard. She placed 1 coffee carefully in front of me before sitting across from me quietly. The library lights reflected softly in her silver blue eyes. Even silence felt intimate with her now. I wrapped both hands around the warm can automatically. "Thanks. You looked cold." That tiny sentence hit harder than it should have. Nobody usually noticed things like that about me. Whether I was tired, cold, overwhelmed. Most people only noticed when I inconvenienced them. But Yuck noticed everything. That realization warmed something painful inside my chest. Rain continued tapping softly against the giant windows around us. Students gradually disappeared one by one until the library became almost empty. Just me. And her. Again. My heartbeat quietly struggled the entire time. Yuck opened her book calmly. Or at least, pretended to. Because every few minutes, I caught her glancing toward me again. Then quickly looking back down. And somehow, seeing the cold, untouchable Yuck saw tome secretly stealing glances at me nearly killed me emotionally. I tried focusing on my notes. Failed instantly. Then suddenly, a loud crack of thunder shook the building. The lights flickered briefly. Without thinking, I flinched hard. Embarrassing. Very embarrassing. I quickly looked down in shame. But then, I noticed movement. Yukina's fingers had lightly tightened around her coffee can too. Tiny. Almost invisible. "You don't like thunder either?" I asked quietly. For a second, she looked surprised I noticed. Then she sighed softly. "No." Another thunder crack echoed outside. This time she looked toward the window uneasily. And something about that expression completely shattered the perfect image everyone had of her in my head. Because suddenly she didn't look untouchable anymore. She looked vulnerable. Human. And honestly, that made my chest ache even more. Without thinking, I spoke softly. "You can sit closer if you want." The moment the words left my mouth, my brain exploded. What did I just say? I nearly started apologizing instantly. But Yuck simply blinked slowly. Then quietly stood up. My heartbeat immediately became unstable. She walked around the table calmly before sitting beside me instead. Close. Very close. Close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Warmth spread through my entire body instantly. The rain sounded louder now somehow. Or maybe my heartbeat was just drowning everything else out. Another thunder crack echoed outside. And for the first time all day, Yuck smiled softly. Tiny. Relieved. "Thank you," she whispered. That almost killed me. Because her voice sounded so genuine. So gentle. I stared down at my notebook, desperately trying to control my breathing. This was dangerous. Everything about this was dangerous. Then suddenly, our hands brushed accidentally near the table. Just lightly. Barely even contact. But both of us froze immediately. Electricity shot through my chest instantly. I pulled my hand back too fast. Sorry. Yuck looked down quietly at her own fingers. Then, very slowly, she moved her hand back. Closer to mine. Not touching. Just near. Like she wanted the option there. My brain stopped functioning completely. The entire library suddenly felt too small. Too warm. Too quiet. Then the door burst open violently. Ha! Both of us jumped apart instantly. Hina stood near the entrance, completely soaked from the rain while staring at us dramatically. Golden brown hair messy. Uniform slightly wet. Expression absolutely feral. "You two are literally having a romance anime scene without me?" My soul left my body again. Hina? She pointed accusingly at us. Thunderstorm. Empty library. Close proximity. You're this close to accidental hand-holding. I wanted to evaporate instantly. Meanwhile, Ina calmly adjusted her posture again. But I noticed something important. She looked annoyed. At the interruption. That realization nearly stopped my heart again. Hina walked toward us grinning mischievously before suddenly dropping into the seat across from us. Then she stared between us dramatically. Oh, this is bad. What is? I asked nervously. You both look at each other like abandoned puppies. My lungs collapsed instantly. Ina looked away first this time. And somehow, seeing faint pink spread across her cheeks completely destroyed the remaining structure of my emotional stability. Because it was real. This wasn't teasing anymore. This wasn't curiosity. Something real was happening between us. And I think, for the first time, both of us finally realized it at the exact same moment. The rain outside suddenly softened. The library became quiet again. And for one terrifyingly peaceful second, I forgot how lonely I used to feel before meeting her. That scared me more than anything else. Because now, losing this would hurt. A lot. Then suddenly, Hina's expression changed slightly while looking toward the library entrance. Oh! Something in her voice made my stomach tighten immediately. I turned slowly. 3 boys from our class stood near the door, watching us. Specifically, watching Ina sitting beside me. One of them laughed quietly under his breath. Another pulled out his phone immediately. Then I heard the sentence that made my chest go cold. Told you she's just babysitting the lonely transfer kid. The warmth inside me shattered instantly. The moment I heard that sentence, everything inside me went quiet. Not angry, not shocked, just heavy. She's just babysitting the lonely transfer kid. The boys laughed softly near the library entrance like they'd said something harmless. Like those words weren't currently sinking straight through my chest. Hina immediately looked annoyed. What's your problem? She snapped. But honestly, I barely heard her. Because suddenly every insecurity I'd been trying to ignore came rushing back at once. Of course people thought that. Why wouldn't they? Ina was beautiful, elegant, wanted by everyone. And me? I was the awkward transfer student who apologized too much and panicked during normal conversations. The gap between us was obvious. Maybe I'd just been stupid enough to forget it temporarily. The boys eventually left after muttering a few more comments under their breath. But the damage was already done. The library felt colder now. Even the warmth from earlier disappeared completely. I quietly stood up first. I should go home. Hina frowned immediately. Kaito. I forgot I had something to do. Obvious lie. But I couldn't stay there anymore. Not while my chest felt like this. I grabbed my bag quickly without looking directly at Ina. Because honestly, I was scared of what I might see on her face. Pity, awkwardness, agreement. Any of those would destroy me completely right now. But just before I could walk away, her voice stopped me softly. You're leaving because of what they said. Not a question. A realization. I forced a weak smile without turning around. It's not a big deal. Silence. Then, it bothered you. Something about the quiet sadness in her voice made my chest hurt even worse. But I still couldn't look at her. Because if I saw concern in her eyes right now, I genuinely thought I might break apart emotionally. So instead I laughed softly. The fake kind. The kind people use when they're trying not to sound hurt. I'm used to it. That sentence changed the atmosphere instantly. I felt it. The silence behind me became heavier somehow. Then Ina stood up suddenly. Her chair scraped softly against the floor. Kaito. The way she said my name nearly stopped me. But I still forced myself to keep walking. Coward. I knew that already. The rain had stopped outside. But the air still smelled cold and wet while I walked home alone beneath gray skies. Every step felt heavier than usual. I kept replaying the library scene in my head. The warmth. The closeness. Her fingers near mine. Then those words. She's just babysitting him. I hated how badly they affected me. But the truth was, they sounded believable. Too believable. And the worst part? A tiny poisonous voice deep inside me whispered the same thing repeatedly. Why would someone like Yukaina genuinely like you? I hated that voice, but I couldn't silence it. That night I barely slept again. And somehow, things only got worse afterward. Because I started avoiding her. Not dramatically, just little things at first. Leaving class quicker. Eating lunch somewhere else. Pretending to sleep during breaks. Every time I noticed Yukaina looking for me, guilt twisted painfully in my stomach. But distance felt safer. If I stayed too close to her, I'd start hoping for things I couldn't keep. And hope was dangerous, especially for people like me. Monday morning arrived painfully fast. The moment I entered class, I could already feel her eyes on me. I kept mine on the floor, cowered again. The lesson started quietly. Usually Yukaina passed me notes sometimes during class. Tiny observations, dry comments about teachers, short questions. Today, nothing. That somehow hurt more. I stared at the blank corner of my desk while trying to focus on literally anything else. Then suddenly, a folded paper slid gently beside my hand. My heartbeat instantly stumbled. I knew her handwriting immediately. Careful, elegant, neat enough to look printed. I hesitated before slowly opening it beneath the desk. Did I do something wrong? That single sentence hit me so hard I stopped breathing for a second. Because she sounded genuinely worried. Not annoyed. Worried. I gripped the paper tighter unconsciously, then slowly wrote back beneath it. No. A few seconds later, another note. Then why are you avoiding me? My chest tightened painfully, because I didn't know how to answer honestly. How was I supposed to explain this feeling? That being close to her made me happy, but also terrified, because every soft moment between us felt temporary. Like eventually reality would wake up and remind me where I belonged. I stared at the paper too long. Eventually I wrote, I just think people are misunderstanding things. Yukaina read the note quietly beside me. Then, for the first time since meeting her, I felt coldness from her directed at me. Not anger. Hurt. She folded the note once carefully, then wrote only 4 words before sliding it back. So are you. My heart dropped instantly. Before I could respond, the teacher suddenly called my name. Kaito. Read the next paragraph. Panic immediately exploded through my body. I stood up too fast, nearly knocking my chair backward. Several students laughed quietly. My hands started shaking again while I looked down at the textbook. The words blurred together. I couldn't focus, especially not with Yukaina sitting silently beside me now. My throat tightened. The classroom waited. Heat rushed painfully into my face. Then suddenly, a calm voice beside me continued reading smoothly. Yukaina. She read the paragraph naturally without hesitation. Saving me, again. The teacher smiled awkwardly. Right? Thank you, Sawtome. I sat down slowly, shame burning through my chest. I hated this. Hated being weak. Hated freezing up. Hated needing someone to rescue me constantly. And somehow, that feeling became unbearable because the person helping me was her. After class ended, I tried leaving quickly again. But this time, Yukaina grabbed my sleeve lightly. Just a tiny touch. Yet my entire body froze instantly. Kaito. I still couldn't look directly at her. What? The classroom around us gradually emptied while silence stretched painfully between us. Then finally, her voice softened. Did someone hurt you before? That question shattered something inside me immediately, because she asked it so gently. Not curious, careful, like she was afraid pushing too hard might break me. My throat tightened painfully. I laughed quietly again. That same fake laugh. You make me sound dramatic. You make yourself sound lonely. That almost destroyed me. The room suddenly felt too quiet, too exposed. I pulled my sleeve gently from her grip. I'm fine. Yukaina knew it too. I could see it in her eyes finally when I forced myself to look at her again. No anger, just sadness. And somehow, that expression hurt worse than if she hated me. because for the first time, I realized pulling away from her wasn't only hurting me anymore. It was hurting her too, and that terrified me more than anything else so far. Avoiding Yukaina stopped feeling possible after that. Not because she chased me. Honestly, that would have been easier. Instead, she became quieter, and somehow that hurt more. The girl who used to wait near the classroom door now left first. The girl who used to glance toward me during lessons kept her eyes forward instead. Even lunch breaks felt colder now. The distance between us wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, careful, which made every missing moment feel painfully obvious. And the worst part? It was my fault. I knew that. Every time I saw her staring silently out the classroom window now, guilt twisted harder inside my chest. Because I missed her too. Missed the soft conversations. Missed the tiny smiles she tried hiding. Missed the way silence stopped feeling lonely around her. But fear kept winning. Fear always wins first. At least, until Friday happened. The cultural festival preparation week had turned the entire academy chaotic. Students ran through hallways carrying decorations. Classrooms blasted music. Teachers looked exhausted. Meanwhile, I volunteered for backstage work specifically because it involved less human interaction. Perfect strategy. Or it would have been perfect if Hina hadn't decided I was apparently incapable of functioning alone. "You look like a depressed bookstore employee," she complained while dragging me through the hallway. "Smile before your face gets stuck like that." "I am smiling." "You look medically unwell." Fair point. I carried a stack of cardboard decorations quietly while following her toward the gymnasium. But the moment we turned the corner, I froze. Yukaina stood near the festival committee table speaking with several students. Her long black hair reflected softly beneath the afternoon sunlight pouring through the windows. Perfect posture. Elegant voice. Beautiful enough to make crowded hallways feel cinematic somehow. And even after everything, my chest still reacted instantly the second I saw her. Pathetic. Hina noticed immediately. "You're doing the sad puppy thing again." "I don't know what that means." "It means your soul leaves your body every time she exists nearby." Before I could defend myself, someone suddenly called out loudly from the committee table. "Sayatome-san, is your boyfriend helping too?" The hallway exploded with laughter immediately. My stomach dropped. Yukina's expression shifted instantly. Cold. Dangerously cold. "He's not my boyfriend," she said calmly. That sentence shouldn't have hurt. But somehow, it did. Even though it was true. Even though I'd literally been distancing myself from her. Hearing it out loud still left this strange hollow feeling in my chest. Hina glanced at me quietly. She noticed. Of course she noticed. Meanwhile, another boy near the table laughed. "Then why do you follow him around all the time?" More laughter. The atmosphere suddenly turned sharp. I lowered my eyes immediately. "Please stop. Please just stop talking about us." Then another voice joined in. Honestly, it kind of feels like she adopted a stray cat. That one hit directly. Because it sounded exactly like the thoughts already poisoning my head every night. A few students laughed harder. And this time, nobody stopped them. Not even me. I just stood there silently gripping the cardboard tighter while shame burned beneath my skin. Then suddenly, something slammed loudly against the table. The hallway instantly fell silent. My eyes widened slightly. Yukaina had placed both hands flat against the committee desk. Not violently, but hard enough to shock everyone quiet. And when she looked up again, her expression was completely different. Gone was the calm, untouchable queen everyone feared. She looked angry. Actually angry. For the first time since meeting her. "You all talk about him like he isn't standing right here." Nobody answered. Even the teachers nearby looked stunned. One student laughed nervously. "We were joking." "No," Yukaina interrupted sharply. "You were being cruel." The hallway became completely silent. I couldn't move, could barely breathe, because Yukaina never raised her voice, never lost composure. But right now, her silver blue eyes shook with genuine emotion. And somehow, that terrified everyone more. "You laugh at him for being quiet," she continued softly. But none of you have ever tried understanding him. My chest tightened painfully. Several students looked uncomfortable now. But Yukaina didn't stop. You call him awkward because he gets nervous. You mock him for apologizing too much. You act like kindness is something embarrassing. Every sentence hit harder. Because she noticed everything. Every insecurity I tried hiding. Every weakness I hated about myself. And somehow, she spoke about them like they mattered. Like I mattered. One boy scoffed awkwardly. You're getting too emotional over some guy. Big mistake. Because something in Yukina's expression finally cracked completely. You think I care because I pity him? The hallway felt frozen. Yukaina stepped forward slowly. And for the first time, her calm mask shattered enough for everyone to see what was underneath. Loneliness. Real loneliness. I like being around him because he's honest, she whispered. He doesn't pretend. He doesn't flatter me. He treats me like a normal person. My heartbeat became unbearable. Students stared silently. Nobody expected this. Honestly, neither did I. Then Yukaina looked directly at me. Not at the crowd. Me. And suddenly her voice softened again. When everyone else only saw someone awkward, her eyes trembled slightly. I saw someone gentle. That sentence completely broke me. Because nobody had ever described me like that before. Not once. My vision blurred slightly before I realized something horrifying. I was actually close to crying. In public. Fantastic. Meanwhile, the hallway remained dead silent. No whispers. No laughter. Just shock. Because the most untouchable girl in school was publicly defending the lonely transfer student like her heart depended on it. Then suddenly, before I could process anything, Yukaina walked directly toward me. Closer, closer, until she stood right in front of me again. And then, very gently, she grabbed my hand. The entire hallway collectively lost oxygen. Warmth exploded through my chest instantly. I stared at our hands completely frozen. Because Yukaina Sotome, the elegant queen of the academy, was holding my hand publicly in front of everyone. And somehow, her fingers were trembling slightly too. Her voice came out quiet now, almost vulnerable. So stop talking about him like he's someone pathetic. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. And for one terrifyingly emotional second, it felt like the entire world disappeared except for the warmth of her hand holding mine. Then suddenly, I realized something even scarier. I didn't want her to let go anymore. After Yukaina grabbed my hand in front of the entire school, nothing went back to normal. Not for me. Not for her. Not for anyone. The hallway stayed silent long after the crowd finally started moving again. But even while students slowly walked away, they kept looking back at us. At our hands. At her. At me. And honestly, I still couldn't fully process what had just happened. Because Yukaina Sotome, the girl everyone treated like some unreachable ice queen, had stood in front of everyone and defended me like I actually mattered to her. Not secretly, not subtly, publicly, openly, like she was done hiding it. That realization shook something deep inside my chest, especially because she was still holding my hand. Warm, gentle, real. My heartbeat felt so loud I was convinced she could hear it too. Then finally, very slowly, Yukaina loosened her fingers. The warmth disappeared immediately, and somehow, I missed it instantly. The moment she stepped back slightly, the hallway noise gradually returned again. Whispers exploded everywhere. Oh my God! She basically confessed. Did you see how she looked at him? Transfer student actually won. Won? If only they knew. I felt seconds away from emotionally collapsing. Hina appeared beside me suddenly with tears in her eyes. That was better than any romance anime I've ever watched. I nearly died from embarrassment. Hina, please lower your voice. No. She pointed dramatically between me and Yukaina. You two have officially traumatized the single population. For the first time all day, Yukaina laughed softly. Tiny. Beautiful. Real. and hearing it made something warm bloom painfully inside my chest. Because I realized something terrifying. I wanted to hear that sound forever. The festival arrived 2 days later. Night covered the academy in glowing lights and soft music, while students moved between food stalls and games, laughing beneath colorful decorations. The entire school looked unreal. Lanterns swayed gently in the evening wind. Fireworks waited silently near the sports field. Warm light reflected across smiling faces everywhere. And somehow, despite all the noise, my world kept shrinking down to one person. Yukaina stood beside me near the courtyard entrance wearing a dark blue festival yukata decorated with silver flower patterns. And honestly, she looked so beautiful it physically hurt to look directly at her too long. Her long black hair fell softly over one shoulder tonight. The usual cold Academy Queen atmosphere around her felt softer somehow beneath the lantern lights. Human. Dangerously human. Meanwhile, I stood beside her trying not to malfunction completely. "You've been quiet for 10 minutes, she said softly. "I'm trying to survive." That tiny smile appeared again. God, that smile genuinely shortened my lifespan. We walked slowly through the festival together while students openly stared at us now. But surprisingly, it didn't bother me as much anymore. Not because the rumors disappeared. Because somewhere along the way, being beside her started mattering more than everyone else's opinions. That realization scared me, but it also felt strangely freeing. At one food stall, Hina suddenly appeared out of nowhere again carrying candied apples. "There you are." She immediately shoved one into my hands dramatically. "For emotional support." "Thanks." Then before I could react, she leaned forward and wiped a tiny bit of sugar from the corner of my mouth with her thumb. The entire moment lasted maybe 2 seconds. But the atmosphere beside me instantly dropped 20 degrees. Slowly, I turned toward Yukaina. Big mistake. Her silver blue eyes locked onto Hina's hand still near my face. And for the first time ever, I saw visible jealousy without her even trying to hide it. Hina noticed immediately, which made her infinitely more dangerous. "Oh," she grinned mischievously. "Yukina's jealous. I'm not." "Too fast. Way too fast." Hina burst out laughing while I tried not to evaporate from secondhand emotional tension. Then Yukaina quietly stepped closer beside me, close enough for her sleeve to brush lightly against my hand. And without looking directly at Hina, she spoke softly. "You shouldn't touch him so casually." My heart stopped completely. Hina stared at her dramatically, then at me, then back at her. "Oh, you're down bad." I wanted the earth to open beneath me instantly. But Yukaina just looked away slightly. And under the lantern light, I noticed faint pink spreading across her cheeks again. Beautiful. Dangerously beautiful. Later that night, the fireworks finally started. Bright colors exploded across the dark sky while students gathered near the hill behind the academy. The crowd noise softened beneath the explosions overhead. Warm summer wind moved gently through the trees nearby. And somehow, Yukaina and I ended up alone together again. Of course we did. We stood quietly near the fence overlooking the glowing festival below. Neither of us spoke for a while. We didn't need to anymore. Silence with her felt full now. Comfortable. Then softly, Yukaina spoke. "You stopped avoiding me." I laughed quietly. "Yeah. Why?" The fireworks reflected beautifully in her silver blue eyes when she looked at me. And suddenly, I realized I was done running. At least from this. I looked down at my hands briefly before answering honestly. "Because it hurt more than staying close to you." The moment I said it, the air changed between us. Yukaina stared at me silently. My heartbeat became unstable again. Then slowly, very slowly, she stepped closer. One step, then another, until barely any distance remained between us at all. The fireworks exploded loudly overhead. But somehow, everything felt quiet. Her eyes stayed locked onto mine completely now. No walls, no cold mask. Just emotion. Real emotion. "Kaido," she whispered softly. The way she said my name almost destroyed me completely. I swallowed hard. "Yeah." For one terrifying second, I genuinely thought she was about to confess. Her lips parted slightly. Her fingers tightened softly around the sleeve of my yukata, and my entire body stopped functioning. Then suddenly, Seiito mesein. Both of us jumped apart instantly. A teacher waved toward us from farther down the hill. Group photo time. The moment shattered immediately. Hina's distant screaming echoed somewhere below us. The romance plot got interrupted again. I nearly collapsed emotionally. Meanwhile, Yukaina closed her eyes briefly like she was physically exhausted by the universe itself. Then softly, she laughed. And somehow that tiny laugh felt more intimate than almost anything else tonight. We walked home together afterward beneath quiet streets and glowing vending machines. The city felt calm after the festival noise. Peaceful. And for once, I didn't want the night to end. When we finally reached the road near my apartment, we stopped awkwardly beneath a streetlight. The warm night wind moved softly around us. Neither of us said goodbye immediately, because both of us were waiting for something. Then Yukaina looked up at me quietly, and my heartbeat instantly lost control again. Kaito. Yeah. She hesitated. Very rare for her. Then slowly, a tiny smile appeared. Soft, dangerous, beautiful, and quietly, almost like a secret, she whispered, "Next time you kiss me." My breathing stopped. "Do it properly." My entire soul ascended. Before I could even respond, she turned and walked away calmly beneath the streetlights, leaving me completely frozen, completely destroyed, completely in love. But just as my heartbeat finally started recovering, my phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. Confused, I opened the message, and instantly froze again, because attached beneath the text was a blurry photo. A photo of Yukaina and me standing close together during the fireworks earlier, taken secretly from far away. Then another message appeared underneath it. "Looks like she chose you first." My chest went cold instantly, because whoever sent it was watching us the entire night. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, I suddenly noticed the faint silhouette of another girl standing beneath the streetlights, watching me.